Promises made, promises stalled. 2 years after that MP raise uproar, Jamaica was told real accountability was coming. Job descriptions, performance measures, penalties. But with elections looming, where is the reform? Right now, every MP gets the same pay, whether they show up, debate laws, or just cut ribbons. The lines are blurred. The trust is thin. But what if job descriptions weren't just paperwork, but the key to shifting power back to you, the employer, the financier? Could this be the start of professional politics in Jamaica, or just another promise that fades before election day? Jeanette Calder, Executive Director of JAMP, Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, joins me now. I am Kwame Thomas, and this is The Conversation. Good afternoon, Ms. Calder. How are you?
Pretty good. It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Let's just get straight into it.
Why not? Why not?
why should every Jamaican care whether MPs get formal job descriptions or not? What's at stake?
I would say our future and the quality of our life. That's a big statement. Do I have the receipts to show why that's the case? Yes, I have been saying, and it's not just for this interview, I'm on record several times because I mean it. I think the job of the Member of Parliament is the most important job in this country. And some people say, boy, Jeanette, that's a stretch, but not for us at JAMP. If you think about it, there is nobody working in any sector, no farmer in agriculture, no doctor in health, no teacher in education, no young business entrepreneur coming up, whose dreams and whose objectives for the year is not heavily dependent on the quality of public goods and services. And so if my dreams cannot be realized, or even the government dreams cannot be realized without quality decisions being made in the Parliament of Jamaica, then yes, I would say to you that is the most important workplace. And what I can't understand, Kwame, is how come the most important workplace does not have a job description to advise newly coming in MPs. For example, we had an amazing influx of about 20 new MPs the last time.
Yes.
Yeah? How do you do onboarding? How do they have clarity on what's expected of them? And then, here's the other big one. How do the people who pay their salaries, which would be you and I and everybody listening, how do the people who hired them? And I use that verb because we've been calling ourselves voters. But JAMP dropped that word because I believe voting is a mechanism to hire 63 public officials. So if we're hiring them, if when they knock on my gate, it's to ask me for a job,
Yes.
I should have something in my hand.
Okay.
And I should have something in my hand that helps me and guides me for the first time in 62 years to pick the best candidate to go and make the best decisions that my dreams can become a reality.
So how did we end up financing this whole thing without knowing the terms?
That is a very good question, but I'll say this. I think part of the reason is it's about how we perceived ourselves and what is the identity. So we've been calling ourselves citizens.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful word. If you ever live outside of Jamaica, you understand what a beautiful word that is. I have. So citizen, it's about where I belong. Nobody can take me away from this land. I belong here. But Jamaicans should be more concerned about not just where they belong, but what belongs to them. And what belongs to them, Kwame? Every penny in the consolidated fund that comes in through taxes. What else? Every bit of land out there called crown land belongs to the people. I'll give you just another one. I tell folks, did you know, Kwame, that you own public companies, 146 of them? Yes, you do. You're a part owner in the 146 public companies out there. So I'm saying to you, if we don't see ourselves as owners of these assets, then are we going to be really interested in the decisions that are being made for them? Less or so. That's one reason. We don't see ourselves as financiers of government's projects and programs. We see ourselves as what? Taxpayer. Now, when you say taxpayer, it's hold on, take away your picture, you know. Somebody's legislated to dip into my pocket and take out my money. No, 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 no.
Without your permission.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what if we allowed citizens to realize the real truth is you are the financier? And the minute I use that word in my workshops and conversations with young people, my next question is, what do investors and financiers want? And they get it like this. a return on my
your
investment. And then you ask them, what is that? And they know it like a drop of a hat. Good schools, good road, medication, bed in a hospital. You see what I'm saying? So it's redefining ourselves to recognize that we are not just citizens, we're owners of public assets and money. We're not just taxpayers, we're financing not just the programs, but the salaries of the MP. And last, we're not just voters, we are employers.
So we're employers and financiers. That's
and
what you're saying.
Owners, the
and
three
owners.
of them. And on the basis of that, I should know what my employees are doing. And the only way any office knows is to create a what? Job description.
So I know that the Prime Minister had promised, had promised this before the next election. But the question that I want to ask now, does this feel like a real turning point or just a shiny promise with no teeth?
Oh, no. I'm going to be very honest and I'm going to speak as it is. This is the longest time I never see this country unified on a matter as they were about the doubling and tripling in some cases. Because remember, MPs are one, but ministers even got more, right? Yeah. Whether you're Labour, right, or Comrade or Independent, a lot of people did bringle about it. The PM was on a what do I call that? In an uncomfortable position. No, uncomfortable position, a public policy, and the country is in an uproar and a furor about it.
Yes.
So he had to come good. Now, whatever I am going to say here today cannot best what Mr. Holden said in a press conference, Prime Minister Holness, on the 22nd of May. We can go to PBCJ and go back and listen to it. It was impressive. I can't sell the job descriptions the way the Prime Minister did. He's the one who explained and said, listen, Jeanette, and I'm saying how I heard it. Jeanette, I've been in this parliament a long time. They need training. We need financial penalties, and these are quotes, financial penalties for people who don't show up. And he went further. He said, 20-odd years ago, we used to do this. We need to bring it back. We need to dock pay. He went further. This one really excited me. He said, listen, folks, we need accountability. So I want reports as to what will be done and what has been achieved from my MPs. And I want a committee who will review it. And here's the sweet part. The sweet spot is, and the public must be able to access that information. Anything I can say today is small in comparison to the PM. So I'll close this part by saying this. If my Prime Minister, who has been in the Parliament for so long, came to the public and said this, we took care of the compensation, it is time now to focus on performance and accountability. And the first thing the Prime Minister said is, I've already thought about the job descriptions. Don't think it's because I'm in trouble why I said this. And he said that. People saying I'm putting the horse before the cart. Not true. I actually, in 2019, had requested it of the government. They gave me a draft from 2021. So Jamaica, I will give this to you immediately. And he acted on it.
Yeah.
Let me hasten to tell the listening public that within short order, we got a draft as a green paper in the House.
Yes.
And a joint select committee, meaning members of the Senate, members of the lower house, the MPs, would come together to review the draft. And the best part of it, when you hear joint select, is the public can comment on it. But JAMP's concern, Kwame and listeners, is that 15 months have passed since the last 2 meetings that committee has had.
And not much has happened after
and
that.
that is not immediately.
So help us to paint this picture, though. If job descriptions were in place, how would that change the power dynamic heading into our next election?
Well, it is never going to be immediate. So I don't want to paint a pretty picture like, boy, somebody knock on my gate. There's some MP, me can't draft for that JD and say, boss man. But there are some members of parliament that I am comfortable saying, I'll give you a real-to-life example. Knock on my gate, I come and say, boy, so, Mr. Thomas, you say you want me to vote for you. Well, the Prime Minister give you a JD, I mean, hold on pan it, because I know somebody's going to knock on my gate. Now, I hear this lady named JAMP, a laba her mouth for a long time. I say, how MPs, I own 146 companies, and MPs get reports, annual reports and financial reports. So make sure that they do well. You can read financial report? What you know about financial report? That is a question that any citizen should be able to ask. That is a significant role of the MP. That's a game changer.
So in terms of this deep confusion, though, between what an MP does and what a local councillor does, how is that damaging trust as far as the citizenry is concerned?
I wouldn't say that the confusion between what an MP and a councillor does is damaging trust. It's creating a little bit of confusion as to who to go to.
Yeah.
If we have time, I can give you an example. Do we?
30 seconds.
Great. Equalization fund. Most citizens never heard of it before. It's 10% of the property taxes. Most people think the MP is who you go to if you need help from the equalization fund. Wrong. It's the councillor. Would a job description make that clear? Yes, it would. That's a simple example of why we need it.
All right. So coming up, in South Korea, legislators are fined for absenteeism. In Kenya, citizens rate MPs' performance. Is Jamaica ready to move from promises to pay for performance politics? Let's tackle that next after these messages. Welcome back to the conversation. On this particular segment of the program, we just ask the simple questions. Why do job descriptions matter? So, and I look at that in the broader context, though, of right now our MPs are paid, whether or not they show up.
Correct.
All right. How does this square with any idea of public accountability?
Well, I think it's always easiest to get folks to understand, you know, the answers to those questions by just asking them to look at their own office. How would Ceen be a success if people just showed up whenever they wanted to, right? Or whether or not Kwame prepared himself prior to coming to this interview, which you clearly have. So for me, accountability is, none of us, the cameramen, you or I, would have gotten where we are today without accountability. Some teacher holding us to account for the homework, parent or grandmother. And then there's personal accountability. When you got to university, they're not over your shoulder anymore. Accountability, holding yourself to account, is what brought success. And then you take it from personal to corporate. Which firm in Jamaica is doing well without an HR with clear job descriptions, clear performance metrics, aligned with the objectives of the company? None. So if personal and corporate accountability is the key to success, how can it be any different for government? It's not. And just to put a fine point on where you started, we have parliamentarians, and I'm going to pick the two who are not going to contest the election so that nobody can say Jeanette is trying to influence them at the polls. But Mrs. Hannah, for instance, decided she was not going to return. And Mrs. Hannah's attendance, I would say, in the workplace, because that's what parliament or the constituency is, the workspace. Mrs. Hannah's attendance nosedived. In some instances, 1 year below 50. Salary the same. In the year Mrs. Hannah got the doubling of her salary, it nosedived. Why? I am speculating that I don't need to come to the office because guess what? I'm not going to contest. But some system should have been in place to say, no, Mrs. Hannah, you still work for the people of Jamaica. So how about Mr. Hugh Graham? Not showing up again. He's not contesting. Front page of the news, Kwame says, this is a no-show. But if you were to ask me, is there anything in the standing orders or the Constitution to hold them to account? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to know what you would have to do before you would be removed from the parliament for lack of showing up?
Tell us.
Here is how we go. I look at it this morning. It's in the standing order, section 81. You would have to be missing. They're only going to assess you over a period of 21 days. If you don't show up, and if you're not showing up, you have to let the speaker know.
In 21 days?
In 21 days. That's the assessment period and the standing orders. Now, if you're not showing up, you're required to write to the speaker to say, I can't show up. Just like you would call your HR or your direct report and say, boss, I can't come in today, I'm sick or whatever. If you would have to, Kwame, be absent for 6 consecutive sittings of the House, and the House is the big plenary when everybody come at Tuesday, consecutively within 21 days. The Parliament doesn't sit 6th. You see where I'm going? In 21 days, there is not even 6 sittings of the Parliament today. So I am saying, if I didn't show up for 2 days and my boss don't know where I am, call me and there's nothing, there's no chance that I'm going to have a job. I might have been dead or sick at home and can't speak. So I'm just saying the bar for what JAMP considers to be the most important job is extraordinarily low. You almost can't remove anybody for lack of attendance.
So what would a real performance framework look like? One where an MP salary or survival would depend on showing up, debating, and delivering.
Well, I was about to say I'm not an HR expert, so we are depending on the government to bring something to us that we can appreciate. But here's what I'm looking out for. You hit the nail on the head. If you're not showing up, argument done. That has to be at the top. So JAMP's website, one of our tools we provide for citizens, tracks attendances, right? So attendance first, not only in the House, because some MPs are fairly good at that, 90%. You have to show up in the constituency. I see you smile because you know where I'm going. My MP shows up, but there are many Jamaicans across the world who say, Miss Calder boy, or the news, from me put my finger in that ink, I eat that. So attendance in both spaces. The next thing is the quality of the representation you're going to get in the House. I focus a lot on the money. So like, for example, the Public Accounts Committee is looking at waste and mismanagement. I'm not exaggerating when I say there are MPs, at least one I can think of immediately, who has sat there for years and I have never heard his voice. While you have MPs who clearly come prepared, stayed up the night before the morning, read through all of the documentation and come to work. Why should the one I've never been heard be treated the same as the one who is there looking out for our interests? So it's the debating, it is the attendance, and then the other thing is the delivery. Absolutely.
So could that work here though? And I want to ask that particular question. So you know, in South Korea, for example, and some US states, poor attendance hit lawmakers in the pocket. Do you see reasonably where that could work here?
If we change it, it actually exists, you know. When Mr. Holness promised, one of the many immediate things he would have done was financial penalties and said he would up the pay, he did indicate that is something the Parliament used to do. It actually is still in place, but 5 years ago when JAMP began tracking parliamentarians and accountability, we asked, does this exist? They said yes. Kwame, the first question you're going to say is, Ms. Calder, how much money them docking? It's about $200–300 if you don't show up. What that tells you and I is that was instituted probably back in 1962. You see me? And just like some of our laws, we don't update them. So the Prime Minister said, we're going to dock pay and financial penalties, but clearly it has to hurt. So the Parliament is going to have to come up with a figure where we go, ouch.
So now, should we expect that MPs will be good at everything? You know, and why I ask that now, I'm looking at the fact that whether or not it's smarter to rate them on their strengths, whether it's in debating or constituency work or national leadership or something like that.
Well, I think it should not be any different for you and I. I am certainly not strong in all the areas that is required on my job description, and possibly it's the same for you. But I'm competent. But here is where the JDs matter. When you give me a JD, I see what my targets are for the performance evaluation that is coming, right, Kwame? When you have the targets that you're going to be measured against, you're checking to see how you're doing. My weaknesses come up a little bit because I know somebody going to say, Jeanette, you're not, so you give them a job description, you're going to find that the weaknesses are being strengthened, but the JDs are not the only thing the PM promised. He was comprehensive. He has thought this thing out, you know. He said training. And he said all the time that he has been in the Parliament, he's ever learning. So what the PM is saying, sure, you come in, but we, just like in any office, we are responsible, HR, for what? Continuing learning and development. So where you're weak, you get stronger. Where you're strong, you get stronger.
So, So how powerful could report cards be? Because we know that that's one of the things that you would find on a JAMP website. You know, so how powerful would those report cards be if every Jamaican could track their MP's attendance, their bills proposed, the debates won, and so on?
I'm going to quote a member of Parliament. When JAMP just started out, we had a little oopsie daisy, and there was some wrong information that was uploaded one day for MP, and it's okay to say who it is because, you know, she said something very positive, MP Juliet Cuthbert. She said, you know, JAMP, it's okay, we know mistakes are made, but I learned how much accountability mattered, because when the story came out about the mistake, people went to your website. I get called left, right, and center. So Mrs. Cuthbert was saying, I did not know that accountability mattered so much until the news came out about the score I got. People went to the website to see it, and calls started to come into my constituency office. So yes, the report cards are going to make a difference. Here's another example. The members of parliament are paying attention to the little things that we're tracking. In 2020, I had MPs who texted me and said, Ms. Calder, I can take a screenshot of my score and share it. I said, it's your score. Then, and I was very pleased. And then another one came out and said, my score is 90, mine better than you. You know what that says to me? And I want your listeners to hear. They're paying attention. It matters to them. I know there's a senator who actually said when they realized that the senator's not being tracked, I was surprised. So what happened to we? I did not anticipate that they would have felt
interested in it.
Why are you not tracking us? Right. So we want to know that when we're doing well, people know. And can I just make this quick point? A lot of folks might think that accountability is a walk of condemnation. It is not. There's nothing I love more than making it about commendation. If you're not tracking, me can't big you up. And Kwame, if you're doing well and I'm an MP, I say everybody applaud you. What do you think me who now get the applaud thing? Nah, man, I have to go pull up my socks.
Step up.
There you go.
You know, but in just a yes or no, if MPs know that they could lose or even face recall, would that finally give accountability some amount of teeth in Jamaica?
100% yes.
All right, so we go to our break. Let's talk about you, the citizen. In Switzerland, citizen recalls officials who underperform. Could Jamaica empower voters the same way? Stay with us. You're watching The Conversation. Welcome back to The Conversation. Survey says Jamaicans want more MPs focused on national projects. Why the disconnect? How much of the gap is just public knowledge? What other fixes do we need beyond job descriptions? And could Jamaica adopt performance scores or fines like Kenya or South Korea? Citizens are financiers, going back to what you had said earlier.
Correct.
You know, but oftentimes I'd submit that they feel powerless. How do we flip the script, and get Jamaicans to act more like employers and not just spectators?
It can't come without public education. And so the first thing we're doing is to let them know this is who they are. So if I walked in here today and I discovered under the quiet that I didn't realize that I owned the Ceen. Okay. But the truth is, having told them who they are, we then need to empower them. I'm the executive director of JAMP, but that comes with a certain amount of empowerment. The people in the office need to understand who I am, but I need to understand my job, and I need to understand the job of the team that I have in order for me to operate in my real identity as the ED and the manager of the space. So citizens, Kwame, we can't get away from it. We need to begin to explain to them how the parliament works, and in nothing as deep as a master's thesis, the basics, how government works. I just did a workshop yesterday on the budget process, explaining to citizens how the budget comes together, how the next 12 months government going to take care of us, who is involved in that process, how they can get involved. And they were shocked. I'm going to tell you, one lady said to me, I can't believe I lived this long and I didn't know this. And I saw the tears in her eyes, no joke. So, Kwame, we have to figure out how to begin to educate the citizens, because that is why they feel disempowered. Guess what is my training? Do you know what's my profession? My profession is different from my occupation. My profession is I'm an architect. How did I end up here in front of you?
Talking about accountability.
Right, guess what? Somebody asked me, I was in government as well, and somebody said, Jeanette, can you do this job for us? Simplify this budget. This is the Jamaican budget, 1,000 pages. I was like, I wouldn't know how to do this, but it wasn't bad money, so I decided to try. I learned so much about my country just understanding how to read the budget. And then the next thing is I became an advocate. And I said, we need to find out why these headlines from the Auditor General about waste and mismanagement is like this.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 months trying to understand how do we hold government and parliament to account? It changed my life. And after learning that, Kwame, I ended up in this chair here. I said, I have to do something. So if we begin to inform citizens, information is power, therefore you feel more powerful. When you understand the problems and how to fix them, you're more inclined to be confident to what? Engage government and parliament. It's education, Kwame.
So sometimes we might argue that there are no tools. We have no tools, from mobile phones to your own platform, you know, that citizens can use today to check performance and call out failures. But what are some of those tools besides those? Well, besides the mobile phone that I've spoken about, but with your own platform, what else do we have that exists that allow us to do that?
Well, I would even want to share with you what the government has done, but government not doing such a good job at promoting itself. So, for example, those who are interested in public affairs, a lot of people watch this program and many others. They want to know how them country are run. And you see them on social media talk about them country all the day. People are not apathetic. They're interested. About 3 years ago, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, created something called an investment map. Who are the investors? Us. So they have put on that map a map of the country with all the projects that they're doing in Jamaica. They tell you how much it costs and where it is, and they have a section for citizens to co-labor with government. If you live near the project and it looks stalled, take a picture, upload it and say, Ministry, we not see no construction go on for how long? You get where I'm going? That is a tool the government has given to the Jamaican people to what? To support them and partner with them. But how many Jamaicans know about that, Kwame? Kwame, you are saying a lot today that I'm learning from you. You're a very informed citizen, but did you know that investment map existed?
No.
There you go. No. So that is one tool. Another tool and a way of engaging government is the Constituency Development Fund process. That's 20 million allocated to every constituency. You want a basketball court at your community center, you want to move some pit latrines, you want your road paved. The government has said you can participate in the budgeting process by deciding how this 20 million going to be invested in your constituency. I ask citizens all the time, if I ask your studio crew, how many of you guys ever been to a Constituency Development Fund meeting? That is a tool. It gives you a door to speak with your MP. And by the way, it's not just your MP. All the service providers are at a CDF meeting.
Yes.
So if you say, I want X, they can respond. That's a tool the government has given. But you want to know my favorite tool?
What's that?
The access to information legislation.
No, I know about that.
Powerful tool. Now, most employers and financiers can walk down a corridor in an office and demand accountability from their staff. We can't as citizens. That's the parliament. I can't walk in and just start to demand. I can't do it on the floor of the house. The access to information legislation is what the government has given to the people of Jamaica over 20 years. That is what everything you hear Jeanette Calder talking about that I'm utilizing. So for example, if an Auditor General's report come out and say there has been $500 million of waste in the National Water Commission, and here is what must be done to fix it, that's my money. I am the boss. I need to find out in about 6 months what has happened. The ATI tool allows me to write to the head of the agency or the PS or the minister and say, here is a report I have seen. Here is what the AG said must be fixed. How far have you gotten? Give me the documentation to tell me what have you done. Wow!
And anybody can do that.
You want to hear the answer to that question? I'm on the edge of my seat. Not just any citizen in Jamaica, anybody in the world. And I know people outside of Jamaica as journalists who are using Jamaica's most powerful tool, and citizens don't even know about it, Kwame. Powerful.
So in
Gift
places,
from the Parliament of Jamaica.
In places like the US, in places like Switzerland, for example, voters can do a recall, you know, for underperforming officials.
Among other things.
Do you think that job descriptions could be the first in a series of steps towards bringing that power to Jamaican voters?
I would say we should have always have had access to recall even before a JD. Citizens know when you're not perform. If you not show up for a year, they don't need JDs to tell them that they can vote you out if recall was available. However, I think it's only fair that if you are going to assess somebody's performance, Kwame, that there are equal expectations about what you're going to be measuring me on. And that is why with your job and mine, we have them. I think for the citizens of Jamaica, they should have it too. The only issue that I have with recall, if I might share it with you, I'm not a big fan of it, and I'll tell you why. I vote you in. Recall says if you have underperformed, but underperformance is not just in the constituency. So when an MP goes into the office, the parliament, on a Tuesday afternoon, he's not making policy just for his constituency. He is not making laws just for his constituency. So, and most importantly, it's not just his constituency that's paying his salary.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, for example, I am going to be open. I can't do it any other way. I'm sorry, folks listening. When there was a lot of furor around Mr. George Wright, a lot of Jamaicans felt, some, that he should be removed. Now, my take on it is, if the constituency say, well, I'm down here patch road, and I don't care about in conduct abroad, my road will get patched. I'm saying, but the rest of Jamaica would have to put up with something that they're uncomfortable about, paying that person. And I think recall, putting all of that responsibility on just the constituents, when he's serving me, when he's also my MP, when I'm also paying his salary, means that recall is not my first way of... It's not the best tool necessarily, but I will start there if the government gave it to us.
Half a loaf is better than none. So fixing the confusion, we spoke a little about the confusion between MPs and councillors.
Right.
How critical do you think, in your estimation, is that for citizens to hold the right people accountable?
100%. I think that is it at the word go. If you have come to me to hold me responsible for something that, boss man, I didn't even know I was supposed to do that, then that's unfair.
So do you think, though, do you get the sense that Jamaicans are ready for that particular power shift? And why I ask, I want to find out whether or not political apathy is still a bigger threat than all the things that we've been talking about just so far.
Yes. I mean, social media tells me that they need something. People are yearning. They're on social media for days on end discussing the things that media shares with us about the waste and the mismanagement, if you want to call it the instances when we have misconduct. Of course, when we get to election time, one of the things you hear, and it is so common, Kwame, is, my God, look on my road, look how pretty. If I'm in election, I didn't go see that. So we have given somebody, and this is important, we have given somebody a job with a 5 years. I can't touch them whether or not they perform. What does it do to a human being when they know I'm untouchable for 5 years? If every of us had a contract, everybody in here, I'd like to think I would still perform, but I'm only human. Not as good as if I know my board would fire me if I wasn't doing the job.
So then, if citizens don't grab this moment, what's the risk? Another 5 years of promises without power?
The risk is, I have this, what I call a scrapbook of the Auditor General, where from 1958, I'm looking at headlines of waste and mismanagement. And you can test me on it. If I pick up one from 1958 on the parish councils and compare it to the latest Auditor General's reports on the municipal councils, there is nothing different in the findings. So I'm here to tell you, if you've been concerned about your money, the waste, the mismanagement, the abuse, and the corruption, I guarantee you it will continue unless we have some accountability mechanism. Should it be the job description first? Should it be something else? It's for the country to decide with the PM, but we do need some form of accountability, and I think JDs are the most basic place to begin. So the answer is, whatever the status quo that you have now is gonna barely move without what we're talking about here today.
So we definitely need change.
Well, don't take it from Ms. Calder. Take it from the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Remember what the PM said? At 2019, I asked for this. So the PM is already ahead of us saying, I've been in this parliament for 3 decades. And last but by no means least, in all fairness to the people, we put Mr. Holness in Jamaica House, and he said, my mantra is accountability. So he and I agree it's the master key to success. And there are things he promised. Impeachment. Bruce Golding had passed an impeachment bill, not passed, tabled one, drafted it in 2011. And Mr. Holden said, I just have to retable it. In 100 days, it will be done, because it's there. He promised what? Fixed term limits for prime ministers. That's one mechanism he thought would improve performance. And some others. None of that has happened. And I think we don't, you know, we really can't get all of that done, Kwame, between now and elections.
Yeah.
Which is why JAMP is saying we're going to remind the Prime Minister of his promises, but the one I believe can be done before and should be done before is the job description. So when and if Mr. Holness comes back in, we can hit the ground running with the rest of stuff.
Oh, so yeah. I'll ease into a break now. And now
Okay.
let's go bigger. Could this be the moment Jamaica finally professionalize politics? In Chile and Ghana, new standards are raising the bar. Is Jamaica ready? That's our final focus. Continue to stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. On this, our final segment, I ask the question, is certifying MPs real reform or window dressing? Ghana ties MPs to development goals. Could that work here? Is Parliament ready, or are we trapped in old patronage? Could job descriptions unlock voter recall powers? Are parties serious or quietly resisting 5 years from now? Or vision for a professional Jamaican Parliament? Is it closer to being realized, or are we at the same place where we were?
I think it's closer. I think the minute you have the chief policymaker in your country articulating it as a promise and a commitment, for me, that's a massive step forward. One of the things I want your listeners to be very clear on before I go, Kwame, this is not the typical conversation of JAMP advocating for a policy change and trying to convince the Parliament. The parliamentarian of parliamentarians have already made a decision and a commitment. That's Mr. Holness.
So we're just holding him to account.
So that is the job, and I want folks to be very clear. This is before elections, and people could easily take this, you know, agitation from JAMP wrong. It is my job and your job as the employer, and if you even want to leave it as citizen and people are comfortable with that, if the PM makes a promise, when I look at my schedule for a day, I can't imagine his, as the Prime Minister. So I'm saying a lot can escape your attention.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to come back and say, PM, PM. And that is what JAMP is doing. I said, PM, you came, you made a case, you say you're on the way down the road towards it. We are here to remind you that this is the game changer. By the way, his words are not mine. I am only here to say he sold it to me, sold it well, and I believe, yes, Kwame, that Jamaica is ready for it. And there's nothing that should stop us from putting these things in place. So
you're saying that this conversation that we're having now, where we're talking about certifying MPs and setting job standards and all of that, that's not just window dressing now. It's where we can really shift Jamaica towards
Can I give you a practical example?
As a profession.
Well, as a practical example, one, the PM has already said financial penalty is not new. We just need to keep doing it and up the ante. Been there. He has also said this matter, which he's going to institute, of parliamentarians providing a plan and their achievements to be held accountable by him. He went further to say, we're doing it already, Jamaica. That's what we do at our retreats. What is going to be different to up the ante, as you say, is that I am going to make it public what they have committed to. Now, the PM is saying, we're doing it already. It's coming to me. We have it at our retreats. He's now saying, and I'm quoting him, I am not your master. I work for you. You elected me. You can find it in that presentation. Those are the same words Ms. Calder is using today. So he's saying, what I'm going to change is just a matter of allowing the public to have access to what they committed to and what they have achieved. That is moving it up the rung. The PM said it can be done. I agree with him. Let's get going.
So in Ghana, for example, we see where MPs now undergo performance review, because if you have a job description, then obviously it begs the question of no, a performance review.
Correct.
You know, and these are tied to what they call developmental goals.
Right.
All right. Could that particular model work in our political culture, you think?
Yes, I can't think of any reason why it's not. Let me just start by pointing out we're all modeled off the UK. So when the Parliament provided the draft job description, I went to see what else was out there. I took a look at what's on the UK Parliament. It's a joke in comparison to the draft that Jamaica produced. What that tell you about us? That when we say we're ready.
We're ready.
So I'm saying the very country that defined the Westminster system, that the whole Commonwealth is following, all of those, Ghana that you have mentioned, Jamaica has already provided a draft job description that is better. Now, I was asked to critique it, and I did. It can get even better. But I'm just saying we started at a good place, and that is how I know. When we decide that we're going to do something, Kwame, we're going to come good.
So in terms of the parliament, though, structurally, do you think the parliament is structurally ready to sustain this particular shift, or is it trapped in what we call the old patronage system?
It's still trapped in it. I still believe that, though the Prime Minister is right when he said, I am not your master, I work for you. The truth of it is the system is not designed to reflect that relationship that says we, the people, are sovereign. When Kenya redid its constitution in 2010-11, they started off by defining who is sovereign. The word sovereign means does the power rest?
Reside.
And it starts the constitution by saying the people have the power, and we are divesting it to the parliament on our behalf. So that way of thinking, it's cultural, it's been in us a while, it's gonna take a while, Kwame. I'm just saying we can move at a quicker pace than we have been moving.
So as we wind down to the end, though, do you really think that job descriptions could serve to unlock bigger reforms, you know, like giving voters the right to recall, especially before the 5-year wait, because that's one of the things that we argue about.
Yes, and it's the safest route, and I've been using it and going there throughout the entire interview, because I'm really here, as I said, to remind the PM and to share with the public what was said. The Prime Minister's exact words is, now that we have taken care of the compensation matters, we will pivot to a well-articulated performance management system with an accountability framework. I could not put it any better than that. So if I'm going to end on a statement, is to quote the PM by answering you to say, Kwame, we get the and I believe it should have been the other way around.
No, because I'm saying, you know, I'm thinking that what I have done in essence is, listen, let me sort out my pay first, and then I look at the accountability measures, the job descriptions, and because I know that you might not do this in the time span, you know, in the right time span. So let me enjoy my salary first. You know, that might be the case. That might be, you know, so that brings me to the next question now, as to whether or not the political parties are serious about this particular shift, or are they quietly resisting while they're keeping the old patronage system alive.
I'm going to say the little that JAMP is doing to begin to measure attendance and other things in the House. I shared with you how some MPs responded. When they're doing good, they want to be acknowledged for it. And there's no system in place right now that allows citizens to objectively, not subjectively, objectively know that this MP is doing well. The news tend to carry the bad news about those who are what? Not coming to Parliament. Yeah. What about those who are? So the thing about the job description is those who are not doing well, not going to want it. The vast majority of the MPs are showing up.
Want it.
They might be coming a little late, but I think if you push them. But I think they want to be recognized for when they're getting it right. And at this point in time, yes, we are hiding the ones who are not doing well, but I think the ones who are doing well would want to say, let's go for this man. It's not really right, and it's not really fair. And that's another reason for the job description. Equity and fairness in the reward and in the recognition. Any of us in the workplace, if we are work double you, why should you and I be getting the same increase? So, yeah, fairness. Fairness.
So 5 years from now, if these reforms, if they stick, what's your vision of a professional, accountable Jamaican parliament, and how will citizens feel the difference?
I'll give you an example, because I don't like to talk in theory. What I envision, for example, is a parliament that is functional and performing. There's a lot that's dysfunctional in the parliament, and I can come back another day to talk about it. But one example is where parliamentarians actually see it as a responsibility to educate their constituents. I want at budget time for there to be town hall meetings. I hear JIS used to do that, by the way, in the old days, go around and meet with citizens.
I heard about that.
Me not so old either. Me to hear about it, let me hasten to say. So a professional parliament, I would see parliamentarians vesting themselves in educating citizens, teaching them how parliament works, telling them after budget what is in there for them, so that they can hold the government to account. Because that is one thing I had to learn. I didn't, even as someone who was a part of government for 6 years, I didn't realize, Kwame, that one of the most important responsibilities of the parliament, meaning both sides in the house, is to hold the government to account. That after the budget, every parliamentarian who is not in the cabinet is supposed to be watching what is happening and saying to the cabinet. And when I say every, I mean on the government side as well.
Yeah.
I did not know that, because all my life, what do I see? Only the opposition holding the cabinet to account. With a job description, every Jamaican would know that a Tova, that a Robert Miller, that a Morland Wilson, these are government MPs, are supposed to be holding the cabinet to account. Isn't that not a good example?
Yeah.
We don't know that unless we had a job description. We all think it's the opposition's job to do it. So a professional parliament will be teaching citizens those rules and then empowering us to work hand in hand with them to make sure government gives us everything that they promise us. That's what I envision in 5 years.
And how would we feel the difference, though?
Oh, goodness gracious me. I think in the quality of the public goods and services that we are receiving. So, for example, when an Auditor General submits a report to Parliament that says X, Y, and Z needs to be tightened up and be made more efficient, it will happen because a professional Parliament is going to what? Not just get the report, read the report, and get in touch with that entity to say, have you done these things? And if not, you call them into Parliament to explain themselves and find a way to make accountability real, because we have public accounts committee that do that now. But after every meeting and the government go back to offices, nothing comes of those recommendations. A professional parliament will make sure that there's remedy. It will show up in the quality roads, quality hospital, quality schools. And there was a country, by the way, there was in Colombia, a mayor was doing such a good job, Antanas Marcos, that when they saw the difference, when he brought accountability to police force, to judges, to everybody, the business sector in Colombia started giving an extra 10% in taxes. Nobody had to legislate it. Those are the kind of things, when citizens are getting the benefits, they're supportive and financially in that way. That's what I expect to see.
Jeanette Calder.
Great things ahead.
Yes.
If we get this JD.
Yes. Let me just take this opportunity to thank you for sitting with us here. Tonight's truth, clarity empowers. Performance protects, and participation. That's how citizens reclaim power. Promises fade, practice endures. I'm Kwame Thomas, and this was The Conversation. Stay sharp, stay engaged, and stay in charge.